I'm going to be very honest. That was a brutal loss, a tough loss to watch, especially after how the Blues played against the Islanders. It is unacceptable, to be honest. Very annoyed, very frustrated, but I'm going to talk about what went wrong during the Blues postgame show.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, the game just ended in Detroit, and it was a very ugly 6-1 loss. You know, I was watching this game optimistically. I was like, you know what? The Blues could come into Detroit, especially after the momentum that they had when they beat the Islanders on home ice, and they could very well win. That did not go as planned. So I will be talking about what went wrong in that game. Switching goalies too early, that deserves its own segment because that was infuriating. And looking ahead, because what we do here on Locked On Blues is we look ahead because we cannot stay stuck on one thing, even if that one thing is uber annoying and uber stressful. I do want to let you know you can follow Locked On Blues on Twitter at Locked On Blues and keep up with everything going on. I usually live tweet during games. Today, maybe a little bit more of an annoying live tweeting situation, as I did ask if we could forfeit the game after the first period. But nonetheless, a lot to dig into. So, yes, it was a 6-1 loss today for the St. Louis Blues as they had some afternoon hockey. Now, I said this on yesterday's episode. I don't think the Red Wings are this amazing team. I don't think that. I'm sorry. I don't whatsoever. I think that they're a good team, but I wouldn't consider them one of the best teams in the NHL at all. And the thing about the St. Louis Blues is that when they go down hard. So, in case you want to look maybe at, some of the games the Blues played this season against the Red Wings, they have lost to all of them. And what do I mean by that? Well, the first time they met in December, the Red Wings won 6-4. And then when they met again, obviously today, they lost 6-1. So I guess the Red Wings have a lucky number 6 against the Blues. But that first period, 30 seconds in, Patrick Kane was able to get the Red Wings on the board. And then the Red Wings were able to get 3 other goals in that first period. Now, the Blues did score once today, and that was by birthday boy Zachary Bolduc. And I know I did not talk about Bolduc in my last episode. Honestly, I was so happy with how Buchnevich played that I just didn't even think to even talk about Bolduc. I kind of slipped my mind. But yes, today is his birthday, the big 2-1, 21st birthday, scores his first NHL goal. So a big day for Zachary Bolduc on the ice. That is the one positive takeaway. But other than that, there doesn't seem to be many positives from today's game. And I don't blame you at all if you're like, Haley, there is none, because there really is none. As I mentioned, I will talk about the goalies and how they got switched a little too early, in my opinion. But that'll be a whole other segment. And then after Bolduc's goal, the Red Wings were able to score 2 other goals, making it 6-1 after 40 minutes. And then in the third period, no goals were scored, even though St. Louis had plenty of opportunity to score. And they had really nice plays set up with good opportunity, but they had nobody there to rebound. And you know how this goes. I think at this point, it's needless to say that, yeah, we kind of know how this team's going to be. It's funny, right now, the ESPN post game is on, and PK Subban is talking about the game. And it cracks me up, honestly, because this game was a national televised game, and the Blues just looked like trash. And ironically, the game that they played the other night where they defeated the Islanders, one of their best games of the season, I feel like not a lot of people saw that. So it is what it is. I mean, you can't go back and you can't erase this deficit, But this game was just a sloppy game. From the very beginning, as I mentioned, 30 seconds in, Detroit was able to score. And that just goes to show that the Blues really did lose control immediately. But this has been a pattern with St. Louis, right? Where the opposing team is able to score immediately as soon as the period begins. It could be the first period, the second period, the third period. We've seen this recently where the opposing team has no problem off the face-off, able to get possession and score. And that does concern me. There is a lot to be concerned about this game, but I'm not going to overreact and I'm not going to say, oh, this is the end of the world, because I know it is not. It just is something that the Blues need to fix going forward. They had no control all game. And I told you this once, and I will say it again. When that first line with Robert Thomas doesn't have the momentum that it usually does, the rest of the team crumbles behind. And it's just an observation. I don't necessarily know, what are the facts when it comes to the first line when they don't play well. But from observing this team and watching this team, it just seems to me like if Robert Thomas and his line isn't on it, then they're not going to win the game. And that's how it is. And that Kevin Hayes line, they had so many opportunities today and they just couldn't, for whatever reason, um, accumulate anything. It just was a really, really bad game. And I don't know, you know, why the Blues fell off the way they did, right? Now Nashville passes them, so now they're 5th in the Central, so obviously that's sucky. Um, it's not good, right? Minnesota right now has 60 points. Blues are still at 62. You know, they're coming to the point in the season where, you really could fall behind and miss the playoffs. And I hate to be looking at the stats every single game, but I can't help it at this point. Um, I'm going to look at the stats. So I do want to say something. In that second period, which was crazy to me. I mean, the penalties today were mostly on St. Louis. Too many men on ice, okay? Slashing. Jordan Binnington tripping. Like, I understand that this game maybe wasn't the most clean game possible, but like the penalties were ridiculous today. And also, other than that, the Blues had a really good power play opportunity. I know that, in the third period, with only a couple minutes remaining, you can't come back from being down 6-1, right? But they could have at least scored another goal and showed some life. It just was sloppy. And I think that's, at the end of the day, how to describe today's game. It was a sloppy hockey game, and I did not like what I saw. I think when you look at Detroit, you look at their stars, right? Alex DeBrincat, he was able to get a power play goal and a regulation, like a regular goal as well. So he got 2 goals today, right? You look at Patrick Kane, and he was able to get a goal and an assist, right? You look at this team. I mean, Lucas Raymond with a couple of assists. I mean, you look and you see what this team has done today, and their star players, and I talked about this before, have been utilized. And then this is not a diss on Bolduc, and this is not a diss on Sod or Walker, but how is it that is the guys that stepped up today? Again, beyond me, and it's not a diss at them, because I truly, at the end of the day, I like Bolduc. I'm happy that he's up here, you know. But it just seems to me like the guys that were supposed to show up didn't show up today, and that's what caused the game. You cannot blame this on the younger guys on the team, or maybe the guys that are not in the top couple lines. It's a team sport, but even the defense today just was non-existent on the ice. And I hate when people blame the goalies, and I'm going to talk about this, but this was not on the goalies today. Okay, you know that, I know that, we all know that. So a lot to discuss, but most importantly, I think they switched goalies way too. But before I dive into that any deeper, I just want to let you know about my friends over at Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't just search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need a hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to the Indeed data. and matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One thing that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy, leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more that you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of the show will get a $75 spending credit for your job. To get more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? You need Indeed. Indeed, you do. You know what wasn't Indeed? It was switching goalies after the first period. I understand, okay? Binnington let up 4 goals. He then obviously had a little bit of a tripping minor. I get it. I get it. Okay, I'm the first one to say it. I understand why you would take Binnington out. But on the other hand, it's like, did you really have to? I like Joel Hofer. I do, but Binnington's the kind of goalie where I understand his emotions run high, and I get that. But you also don't want to mess him up, right? You don't want him to think that, this was on him. I mean, yes, you could make the argument, oh, yeah, it could have been on Jordan McGinton. You could make that argument. But I will always be a Binnington supporter no matter what. And I think that maybe you take him out midway through the second period, but let him at least go back and prove that he is an asset, right? I can't be the one to make that decision. Obviously, that's up to Coach Bannister, and I trust his judgment. I just think that switching a guy like Jordan Binnington out of net just maybe wasn't the best idea, and it is what it is. I'm going on right now to see if any of the players spoke to media after the game. I want to make sure I got this episode done ASAP. So I did ask you on Twitter, by the way. I said, describe this game in one word. Josh says disheartening. Locked on Cardinals. My friends over at Locked on Cardinals says pain. Jim says heartless. Nick says ew. And Sean says ow. It was brutal, okay? There is no denying that whatsoever. It was bad. Right now, I'm not seeing anything from anybody about the game in a sense of any post-game reports, but it sucks seeing everybody so upset because while this game I don't think was a good game in any way possible, I don't know if I feel comfortable in saying, this is the end of the Blues' potential playoff run. I think that, it's not good. I don't think that they showed up really. Another interesting observation by Luke Kurak, who covers the Blues for the Hockey News. He said Kasperi Kapanen was not in one singular shift in the third period. And, I didn't even notice because I feel like he just hasn't showed up all game. And it's ironic, but right now everyone's more happy with Scott Perunovich than they are with Torrey Krug after this game. It really sucks seeing the fan base react the way that they did. But even Perunovich, I mean, even that was bad. I mean, there wasn't one player besides Bolduc that was on it today. And I think that as a fan base, yeah, it is disheartening because we were a team that very well could have gotten a wild card spot. And now it's kind of like, okay, I don't know if that's going to happen. After what I saw today, do I think that's going to happen? I don't want to go back and forth as I mentioned before, but no, they don't look like a playoff contending team. And one thing I want to point out too is when you look at and you break down this game is that, they served, 6 penalty minutes. They had 23 shots on goal. It wasn't like their stats were awful, right? But Detroit, 4 penalty minutes, 34 shots on goal. I mean, their faceoffs were really the same, so that doesn't matter as much. But Detroit had majority of the puck possession, and that is an issue. I think that at the end of the day, sure, could you easily blame the goalies? Yes. But was it the goalies? No. Because I still think that it was, well, to be honest, I still think it was on the defense, but that's okay. That's with me. And Detroit was producing and the Blues couldn't. I mean, it is insane the fact that they got blown out. Like 6-1 is bad. Okay. And they barely spent any time in their offensive zone. I mean, I could just repeat myself back and forth, but it was a really ugly, disgusting game. Nothing good about it. And time to kind of focus on moving on. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Do you love making money, but also love spending money? Don't we all? You can now make money while spend it every time you shop with Ibotta. Spring break is around the corner, by the way, which means that you're going to go shopping, but don't shop for your big trip and get nothing in return. Make sure you're getting cash back every time you shop with Ibotta, okay? So some of the things that you can do. Another fun fact about Ibotta is that the average user earns $256 per year. Okay. That money can go towards a lot of things. So don't miss out on literally making back free money. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code Locked On NHL. When you register, just go to the App Store and Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code Locked On NHL. That's Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store and use code Locked On NHL. So, what do the Blues have next? Well, they have the Jets, the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know how I feel about this one. The Jets are not a team, and I'm trying to be careful if I'm going to word this, that you would necessarily look at and think, yeah, they're the best team in the NHL, but like they really are. And now I am nervous. This is a game. I know it's a few days away, but this is a game where you're coming off of a loss like this and you're going against a better team than Detroit on their home ice. I don't like this whatsoever. Now, this is a game that makes me nervous. I think that the Blues, while they do have talent, and I think that they do have what it takes to win. I just have a really hard time believing that they're going to be able to win, especially after how today's game went down. I would have felt a little bit more confident, even though if they lost, despite the loss, if they lost in a better way. You might be wondering, Haley, what does that even mean? It means maybe scoring a couple more goals, accumulating something more in the power play, having better spatial awareness, better puck possession. So many different factors that could have gone on in today's game that even if they did lose, it would have been a better loss. I just don't think that you and I can realistically look at this team and say to ourselves, yeah, this team is for sure going to be in the playoffs. I don't know. And this is the problem that Drew Bannister has to have is how he can remotivate this team after a loss like today. It's not like it was a loss where it was like a 3-2 loss. No, like this was a 6-1 loss. Like this was really bad. The guy that you bring up, Zach Bolduc, 21-year-old, scoring his first NHL goal, it should be a momentous game, right? It's not because of how bad the loss was. It's a good for him, right? That's the pro. Good for Bolduc. Good for him. Other than that, it sucked. And you're looking ahead to the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to talk more about this on Monday. But realistically, how do you fire up a team right now with 62 points to take on a 75-point team like Winnipeg that, well, I'm going to be honest, I don't see losing. Okay? I don't. I see Winnipeg winning, and I don't want to be that person. I'm so negative. I'm not negative. I'm realistic. Okay? And I think that right now, the biggest challenge that the Blues have is getting back on it again. Okay, you had a bad game. A loss is a loss. Just because it was a 6-1 loss doesn't mean that it's any more of a loss than it was. How can you get back on the ice and remotivate yourselves? And this is a moment where your captain, Braden Shen, needs to step up and to lead this team because right now all the momentum is probably away. And I do not blame the St. Louis Blues whatsoever if they come out looking sloppy. I would too, but I'm also not a professional hockey player. All right, I will talk to you on Monday. And like always, let's go Blues.